yesterday we saw about while scanning what from basic view what and all we can do. So today we'll see about condensed view and advanced view. So I'm starting the scan. So I'm right clicking on the folder. One minute. I'm right clicking on the folder and selecting the option scan application. Okay, now I want to scan this email password, the data here.
So do you need to write the test case first?
Sorry?
I mean, do you need to do we need to like write the test cases first, or we're gonna scan the whole page first?
Mm, anyway, eh, you can go. Like you can create the module for that particular functionality and you can create the test case. Then you can create the module for another functionality and you can create the test case for that. Either way you can do. But the thing is, if you want to create the test case for any functionality, you should have the module for that. So that's the only. Okay, this is the advanced view. So if you are on the basic view, you can click on the advanced view and you can come to the advanced view. And one more view we have is condensed view. So if I'm clicking on condensed view, it will get pinned to the right side of my page, right side of my web page. So it helps us to see the web page more clearly. So that is the only purpose of condensed view. So I can easily click on capture the modules from my web page because if sometimes this web page will hide whatever behind it. So that time you can use this condensed view. So in order to clearly see whatever behind it.
Okay.
And then we'll see about advanced view. So we have some extra functionalities and things are here. So highlight selection. Oh, I'll explain each options that are present here. So finish screen after doing the work, after capturing the controls, we'll do to save the work. We will give this finish screen. So then highlight selection. So sometimes you would not be if you are working from advanced view, sometimes you would not be clear about what is the exact link, which means you can see I have two books link. One is here, which is in the main menu, and another one is here in the left side under categories. I have books menu. So sometimes, for example, if I'm working from advanced view, I'm not sure about which link is to which one it has been linked. For example, I have two books link in advanced view. So in order to differentiate between them, I can use this highlight selection. To get clarity on the exact control, we can use highlight selection. It will highlight the control in application. And then select on screen. So in basic view, by default, it will be on select on screen mode. You don't need to press any option. You can directly scan the controls from the application. But in advanced view, in order to scan the controls from application, you have to use this option select on screen. Then only you can select the controls from screen. and then identified by. So we will see these four things today. So there are four different identification methods that we can use from advanced view. We'll see that later. And self-healing properties. Okay, I'll explain that also. If I tell now, you cannot understand that. So I'll tell after explaining identification method. I'll tell this self-healing properties. And then this filtered item. So it helps us to filter the items, filter the controls that are showing in the advanced view. So if I'm putting it in the minimum, it will show it will show only the selected controls. As I didn't select anything, it's not showing anything. So if I am keeping it on second point, it will show some controls. And if I'm increasing the level, it will show some more hidden controls also. It will show me. So these and all are not present in the web page, but these are all hidden thing they used to build the application. So increasing the filtered item level, I can see the all the controls that are present within the application. And then filter. So for example, you are trying to search, you are looking for some control, that time you can use this filter option. So for example, you are looking for the control that is link. So that time you can select the control type as link. And visibility. So visible one, invisible. So we have two different kind of controls, right? One is visible, another one is invisible. So some controls would be invisible. So that time, um, in order to look for the visible controls, you can select visible only. Or if you are looking for the invisible control, you can select invisible. Or you are not sure about if it is visible or invisible, you can select visible and invisible. And so for now, I'm giving visible only. So invisible one means if I'm hovering my mouse over the computer's link, you can see desktop, notebooks, accessory. By default, it is invisible, but they are there. So as I give visible only, those options are not coming up here. So I will give invisible. So you can see those options, desktop, notebook, accessories, those are coming now. So you can filter the items like this using the filter option. And then search. So okay, I'll clear the filter. Okay, so if you are searching for something, some control, you can search from here by entering. For example, I'm looking for computer link. You can type link here. Okay, it's not like computer. So it will be coming up with some highlight. So from after searching, you can select. Then show content preview. So okay, so for example, if this is logo, this logo, I know it's a logo. So if you want to see how this particular control is looking like in the application, you can use this show content preview. So it will be coming like this content view. Um, it will not be working for all the controls. For example, if you can see no content available. It will not be working for all the controls. So for some controls, you can see the content preview if you want using this content preview option. Formatting it. Next, select new application. So you are working in this page. You are scanning some items from this page, and you want to scan from different page, or you want to scan from different application, which is not a demo web shop. So that time you can use this option. Select new application. So if I am selecting this, it will show me the select application window, and from that I can select the application or the web page I want to scan. For example, I'm clicking on shopping cart, the different page. So I'm selecting it. So now I can scan whatever I want from this page. Or if you want to scan the controls from different application, you can do using this select new application. And what is close? So in order to close this window, you can use this option close. Now we'll see the different identification method present in our advanced view. Close this. So first we'll see about properties, identifying controls using their properties. So first we have to select the controls that we want. So for logging, I am creating the module. So for that, I would need to capture the controls. So you can see this is the text box. So the text box would be referred by this icon with some kind of A. So that means that is text box where we can give the input as text. And here I'm capturing password. And the left side thing, email password. For example, if you want to verify that also, verify if it is present properly, the spelling is correct or something, if you want, you can scan that also. So and this symbol is called label. It refers the text label. So which means that contains something, some text in it. So that is text label. This is text box. And I'm capturing remember me. So remember me is a checkbox. So which will refer by this icon, some kind of tick. And then forget password is a link, and remember me is again a text label. So whatever you want to verify in your test case, you can scan that. Okay, you want to
So
scan it. Okay, I can capture it wholly because I guess it's an image. Yeah, that is a whole image. They have inserted image. So from image, I cannot extract that sample application by TRICENTIS part only. Okay, I'll try increasing the filter. Okay, I'm not getting any control for that sample. Actually, they have uploaded as an image. That is logo. So they have uploaded it as an image. So I cannot capture that text and all. So by default, we would be using the identify by properties method. So you can see we have one tab identify by properties in the right side. So identifying by properties is the default method and it is the stable one. So comparing to other methods, it will be the stable one. So it's always better to best to go with the identifying by properties. So while we are capturing the controls from the uh, web page, Tosca would select some properties by default. So whatever Tosca thinks it would want, it would select. So for example, you can see. I'm not sure if you are able to see in the left bottom of this window. I am getting one text like the selected item is unique. So while scanning, the target of us to be is to make the controls unique. So by some way we have to make them unique. So then only Tosca will be able to identify that particular control while running the test case. So now it is all the controls that we captured are unique because we are not getting any error. So if it is not unique means, for example, I'm removing the property that is making this particular control unique. So you can see it's highlighted with some amber color and then down I'm getting some error like the selected item is not unique. So while scanning the controls, we have to make sure that the captured controls are unique. So to make them unique, we have these four types. And the first now we are seeing about properties, and that is the stable one. And by default, Tosca will identify any controls using the properties one. In some case, any of the properties will not work, which means none of the properties will make the control unique. That time only we will go with the anchor method, image or index method. So yeah, by default it would be identified by properties mode. So here in the right side you can see identify by properties tab. So from here you should select the proper properties that would make this particular control unique.
okay,
So I'll tell you about the properties. So we have three different types of properties. One is representation property, and another one is technical property, and another one is transition property. So under transition, we would have only XPath. So normally we would prefer technical property, not the representation property. Yeah, representation property also some of the properties is fine, like default name. It is fine because it would help us to identify this particular control unique. But some other properties, if you can see, action point, um, control area, So the context will be same for some other controls also. So we cannot go with context. But you can see action point, control area. These properties define the position of the control. So for example, uh, in y, sorry, xy, in which position it is placed. So based on the position of the control, these properties have to action point, control area, and all. So we cannot go with that property. Um, Default name. So in representation property, you can rely on default name or caption because the value of them is remember me, remember me. So for other controls, those properties will be different. So we can try with default name and caption from the representation property. These properties, if we see enabled, focused, interactive element is steerable. So these properties will be common to other controls also. So enabled means if it is clickable or if it is enabled to do some action. So not only this particular control, some other control, so all the controls maximum will be enabled only. So that time we cannot use the property enabled. Focused, if it is focused or uh, not. So some other controls also will share the same property. So we cannot go with these properties, common properties, is steerable, if this is interactive element. So all these property will be common to others. So in a representation property, you can go with caption or default name. If it you have to see the value of them and you have to finalize like if it will work or not. And in normally we would go with technical properties. So in technical properties we have class name, so it is empty, which means we don't have class name for this particular control. And id is also empty, inner html and inner text. So by maximum, Tosca will prefer the inner text property. So which means inner text property means it will give the value of the specific container. So remember me is a text label, so that contains some text, which means remember me. So the inner text will retrieve the same value. So maximum we will use the inner text and outer text also the similar one. And inner HTML, outer HTML means the path, in the back end they would use some kind of thing. So the path will be shown. And maximum will not use inner HTML or outer HTML because it would have some tags kind of thing in their value. So we would not go with that maximum. And tag means what type of control is that. So it is label. So tag will be label. So not the tag will make it unique because we would have other controls whose tag is label. And title is empty for this. So title means again, so for this title, for this control you will have the title. Actually I was showing from this text label, so checkbox. So for each control the property would slightly differ. So you can see here for checkbox we are having check. So this is checkbox one. For checkbox one, the technical properties are little different comparing to that remember me text label. Okay. So for checkbox remember me, we have some different properties. Checker, which means if that particular checkbox is checked or checked in already or we are not. So if it is checked in already, it will show the value true or it is false. This one you are asking, right? So if we want to do some action, we would do with this control, not with this control. So normally we would go with inner text or outer text. So whatever we should see the value of some particular properties, and we have to make sure that will be feasible, which means it should have the static values. So remember me, inner text is fine. That will be static. The value will be static, and we can go with that. So I have selected the default name, or we can select the inner text also. So while selecting the properties, we have to make sure we have that we are selecting the minimum properties. So I can select the inner text, and I can select the I can select many number of properties, but it's best practice to select the minimum property, because if I'm selecting more number of properties means while running the test case, Tosca will look for the all the properties, in the if all the properties are uh, correct only, it will do the action with that particular control. For example, I've selected these many properties and some value in any of the property. For example, in outer text property, the value has got changed after an upgrade from the development team. So some value has got changed in any one property. So that time Tosca will not be able to identify the control properly. So because it will be looking for the all the properties values, and if any of the properties values getting changed means uh, it will show some error to us. It will show the error like the control is not found, that kind of error. So we are it's best practice to go with the minimum properties, the properties that would be stable one. So we can go with inner text. So I'm checking outer text, outer HTML, default name, and XPath. So maximum this XPath will be working for all the controls, but I would suggest not to use the XPath if there is unavoidable situations like none of the technical properties or representation properties are not identifiable. That time, if you have to go with the XPath, you can use the XPath. Why I'm saying that means you can see the value of the XPath, which the XPath would take the value like the position, again the position of the. So for example, if I'm taking register and I'm using the XPath for the register control, and after an upgrade they are adding one more control before that. Okay, so if they are adding one more control means the XPath will be different for this register button. So again I have to rescan and remap the properties and all. So that would give so much work to us. So it's best to avoid the XPath. And if you are working in the application that has tremendous changes, um, you have to make sure that you are not using XPath, because if they are adding some more control in the web page, that will change the XPath value, and again we have to rescan and remap the properties and all. So in unavoidable scenarios or situations, you can use XPath. That's fine. So by default, Tosca has selected some properties. Even though it has selected, we have to make sure the property selected by Tosca, if it is feasible or not. So for email text box, it has selected ID, so that's fine. That would work. And password label text, it has selected inner text, fine. The value is feasible. Okay, ID. checkbox it has selected ID1. Okay, it will work. Text forgot password link. It has selected in text. For login button, it is selected tag and value. Fine. So the properties that are selected by Tosca are fine, are feasible. In what scenario? If none of the technical property or representation property is working, which means they are not feasible, they have some dynamic values, or they don't have proper values. That time you can go with expert.
Okay.
Mm. So this is how we would select the properties. So this is the identification by properties method. Renaming it as login. So this is identification by properties, and this is the default method and stable one to go with. And then, so I'm saving it. Okay, the next one is the one minute. So next one is the anchor control. So to demonstrate that, I'll okay. Mm, so I'll take this books link. I'm going to capture it. We'll see. So I've selected the books link and it's showing the selected item is not unique. So if I'm looking for the property, the inner text is selected and so it's not being made. So it's not being made unique even though I'm using some other property, default name or label or inner text. None of the properties is working for me for this link books. Why means we have another one link called books. Yeah, as there are similar controls and both are links and both have the same name, so we're not able to identify it unique. So, none of the technical or representation properties is working. So, I guess expert will be working for it. If I'm choosing, yeah, it's working. But I'm not going with that expert. So anyway, if you want, you can use that. So another method to capture this not unique this control is to identify by anchor method. So in order to do the identify by anchor method, first we will select the so in identify by anchor method we have two controls. One is target control and another one is anchor control. So target control means it's nothing but the control that we want to scan, that we want to capture in the module. So this is the target control. So anchor control is the control that we are going to use its property to identify this target control. So first we have to select the identify. After selecting the target control, we have to select the identify by anchor. So in the right side, it will show identify by anchor. So we have target control and we have to select the anchor control for it. So anchor control is nothing but we are going to use the properties of anchor control to identify this target control books. So we can add the anchor control in two ways. One is select on screen and another way is we can drag and drop from this advanced view page. So first I'll show you by selecting on the screen. So we have to click on the select on screen. So we have to scan the anchor control. So we have to select the control that is table one in order to use the anchor control. So normally it's best to go with the control that is table one, which is near above the target control. So here this is the target control, and this is the stable one categories. You know, whatever upgrade they are doing for the application, it would be stable one. They would not make that much change with this particular control. So it is stable one. We can go with that control, and which is near to the books link, which is near about the books link. So it's best to go with this as anchor control. Why I'm saying it's best to go with the nearby control is, so while using the anchor control, Tosca would do the shortest path. Uh, it would use the shortest path terminology to find the target control for the specific anchor control. So if I'm giving somewhere means if I'm using some other controls which is not nearby this target control, it would take some more path, some more. It would be complex, and Tosca will take some more time to identify the target control. So it's best practice to do select the control which is nearby to the target control. So I'm selecting these categories as anchor control. So we have to unselect the select on screen. So these are the properties of anchor control, not the target control. So I'm again getting so this is selected anchor control. I'm renaming it okay. This is categories. So and again I'm getting the error. The anchor control is not uniquely identified. So which means the selected anchor control is not uniquely identified. So we have to make sure it is uniquely identified by selecting the properties. So here we have the properties of anchor control, which is categories. So I'm selecting the property inner text for the categories. Yeah, we can go with inner HTML also. Okay, I'm selecting inner HTML. So normally we would prefer the inner text. Okay, so that's why I went with inner text. You can go with any other property, so which will be feasible. So we can go without the text also. So in order to make it unique, we have to select any property. So the property should be feasible. So inner text is also fine. Inner HTML is also fine. Anyone is fine.
Okay.
Okay. So in this way, we can we can identify the target control using the anchor control. So now Tosca will look for this target control books using the anchor control categories. And this is select using the select on screen. We added the anchor control. The another way is directly. So here I have categories. Right? So I can drag and drop the control over here. So now this is another way to add the anchor control to the target control. So it is not uniquely identified. So I'm trying to select the, okay. After selecting class name, it's made unique. So in this way, we can drag and drop from this advanced view page, or we can use the select on screen to select the control from the web page. So either way, you can select the anchor control for the target control.
Okay.
Okay, so this is identified by anchor method. So next one is identified by image method. Mm, okay. So it's best to avoid this method, identified by image method. Why means the in identified by image method, it would use the zoom level of the, it would rely on the zoom level of the browser and the resolution of the web page. So maximum it's best to avoid this identify by image method, but in some time we have to use the by image method. For example, you have the scenario where you are entering some uh, text, and if the text is valid, you will get some tick, a green tick. For example, you have the scenario, after entering the valid data, you will get the green tick beside the text box. So in that time of period, in order to verify if that is green tick, you will use the identify by image method. But but for other scenario, maximum it's best to go with identify by properties or anchor. So because it relies on zoom level and resolution of the page. If you are creating the proper, if you are creating the project in in your desktop or laptop, and if you are transferring it to the other member in your team, so the resolution and zoom level of the uh, laptop will be different to the other team member. So in that way, so in that time, the controls that we captured using the identify by image method will be unmapped, which means it will not be similar. Like it will show the control is not present. It will not be able to identify the control properly if the resolution and zoom level of the laptop or the browser is different. So that's the one reason it's best to avoid the image identified by image. But in some scenario, it would be needed to use the image identified by image method. So that time you can use identified by image. For example, here we have the logo demo web shop. So and you want to verify it, and you want to verify it should be in this shape. It should be in this shape and everything. So so that time we can go with identify by image method. So first we have to select the particular control, and after selecting, we have to select the identify by image method. So it's identified by image, and here you can see the identifying images, which means in order to identify this logo properly, you can add some identifying images. So that will identifying images in the sense those are supporting images that will make Tosca clear about the particular target image, so particular logo. So you can add, so if you are clicking on this add image, you'll get this plus sign, and you can drag and drop over the area you want to use it as reference, sorry, identifying images. Would you like to consider this method? Okay, it's asking me like you are okay to go with that image method because it would take long time for Tosca to identify it. Okay, it's loading. That's why. So I've added an identifying image. So you can have as much as identifying images you want for the particular control. And you have some property, under property we have one property called accuracy. So accuracy is by default it will be 95. So which helps us to find the control properly. So if I'm giving accuracy 100, Tosca will look for this image. So I'm giving the accuracy for this identifying image. So if I'm giving accuracy 100, it will look for the image that has exact point. So resolution and everything should be matching properly, 100%. And if I'm giving accuracy as some other value like 50, it will look for that particular uh, identifying image with accuracy 50, which means if some of the point is missing, the pixel is missing means it would it would ignore that. So based on the accuracy we are giving here, it would identify the particular image using the identifying. 100 means while running, it will look for the image that has 100% accuracy with the image that Tosca got while scanning. So even if one pixel is missing means it will show like the matching tag is not found. So in this way we can identify by image. So for this logo, we have added an identifying image. You can add some more identifying image also. Okay. So this is identification by image. So the fourth one is identified by index. So identify by index means Tosca will have the number for each controls that are present here. For, maybe for this logo, it has the number index 1, and for this email ID it may be 2, and for logout button it may be 3. So for each control it would have some number. So using that number, it will try to identify the control. So that is the identified by index method. So again, it's not the stable one, because if you are scanning this subscribe button and it has the number 4, for example, and if some more controls have been added before the subscribe button, so the number of the subscribe button will get changed. From 4 it will get changed to some other number like 8 or 10. So if I'm running that particular test case that has subscribe button, it would show there is no, it would click on some other control which has the number 4, so it would be mismatched. So it so it's not advisable to use it identify by index. So in some cases, we can, in some scenario, we can use this index method. So I'll tell one example. So here we have recently viewed products. So these links, the links that are present under these recently viewed products are dynamic. So which means they would get varied every time I visit some product. So now blue and green sneaker. This product is present in the first place, and I have create your own jewelry and all this link. If I'm going to any other page, can close this. If I'm going to any other page, for example, I'm going to computers and I'm viewing this product, build your own chip. And if I go to home page, you can see in the first place, the recently viewed product, build your own cheap computer, is coming up. So which means the links that are present um, under this recently viewed products is dynamic. We cannot be sure about, we cannot use identify by properties because they are dynamic. We cannot go with any properties, and I cannot rely on anchor also, and I cannot use image also because they are so dynamic. And my only requirement out of this recently viewed product is I want to click on the first link, which is no matter what product is present there, I just want to click on the first product in some scenario. So that time you can go with identify by index method. So that's also not feasible because if some other controls are being added before that, the number will get varied. So in but we cannot go with any other identification method in this scenario. So that time we have to go with index method. So I'm starting the scan. So we'll see how to identify using index. So first we have to select the link. renaming it as link number 1. And we cannot go with properties and anything. So I'm selecting identify by index. You can see, okay. So here I'm getting one warning. Use the index only if you cannot choose other identification criteria. So I'm selecting index 1 of 2. So the index value is 1 out of 2 for this particular control. So I'm selecting that. So after selecting, it's made unique. So for this kind of scenario where we cannot use any other identification method, that time we can go with identify by index method.
Okay.
So these are the 4 different identification methods. And yeah, I guess we are done with how to capture the controls. So how to scan the controls from the application. So you just try creating the modules using any method. And if you have doubt, we can discuss tomorrow also. Because these are the ways to create the modules. Um, yeah. And okay, yeah, we'll see about standard module tomorrow and if any other option that are present in the module section. Yeah, that's it for today, Shafiq. Any
Okay.
questions?